This video covers about 42 miles of border from just outside Calexico all the way to the Colorado River. I call it the Imperial Dunes area just to have a short name for it, but the dunes are only a small part of this stretch. 42 miles is a quarter of the California border, and it's nearly all 15-foot high bollard fence already. There were news reports about it already in 2009. It was no doubt funded during the W. Bush era, and the construction may have continued into Obama's time. That seems to be the case with many, if not all, of these pre-Trump bollard fences. They were all funded and constructed about the same time. The green line represents a 41-mile bollard fence. The yellow dash at the end represents about 2/3 of a mile where the fence is still the old landing mat material, which needs to be replaced. This is where a section of old landing mat fence in Calexico turns into bollard fence. There is still about 11 miles of landing mat and picket fence in Calexico and vicinity that very much needs to be replaced, but that's the subject for another video. As mentioned already, this bollard fence runs for about 41 miles towards the east. This photo was taken from the Mexicali side near the street Calle Rio Culiacan. This is how the fence looks from the American side with 3 layers of concertina wire attached. Some joke that a moat is also needed to go along with the wall. In this part of California we have one called the All-American Canal. This canal runs along the border for about 50 miles, not always right next to the fence, but for much of the way it is. The water is diverted from the Colorado River. The water is fast flowing and the sides of the canal are often steep. Reportedly, many illegal crossers drown in this canal. I've heard that the smugglers often tell the illegals to jump right in, that it's easy to swim across, and some of them don't make it. If their family doesn't claim their bodies, those in the area who drowned in the canal or die crossing the desert are buried in the indigent section behind Holtville Cemetery near Calexico. Open Borders radicals often quote the number of such dead buried here as 600, but I would not suggest taking their number at face value. Though they claim to be saints and even border angels, these hypocrites are not above lying and exploiting the deaths of up to thousands of people along the entire border to further their anti-American political agenda. I would say the people who cause these deaths are the ones encouraging and enabling them to come and break the law, not the law or law enforcers. If they didn't break the law, none would die, but the Open Borders hypocrites continue to encourage, aid, and abet them to cross illegally, regardless of how many will die. Sorry to digress, now we get back to the actual border fence. About 28 miles from the start near Calexico, the design of this bollard fence changes. The fence has supports on both sides and is not anchored to the ground. As they say, it's designed to float on sand dunes. This is a tale of what they call the sand dragon, which continues for about 9 miles before it changes back to standard bollard fence. There was a small group of Marines at the sand dunes manning a video surveillance vehicle. They were carrying sidearms too. If they see anything suspicious, they call the Border Patrol dispatcher and an agent shows up right away. I know because they reported me and that happened. There aren't many of these Marines, maybe a couple hundred all along the border, but they are directly supporting the Border Patrol, not working behind the lines doing secondary jobs, as has normally been the case with other troops. Here I'm standing on the shoulder of the I-8 freeway. This is a view of the sand dragon from a distance as it slithers into the dunes. I didn't want to risk driving my car on the sand dunes to get closer. Since it's not anchored to the ground, to keep the fence from being covered by shifting sand dunes, the individual fence panels can be lifted with heavy equipment and repositioned on top of the sand. Before this fence was built, smugglers could just drive across with off-road vehicles and mix with American off-roaders. I'll put some links with more information in the description. Some have told me that they have admired Trump's wall from I-8 in this area, but as said earlier, this fence is at least 10 years old. There are already about 50 miles of this pre-Trump bollard fence in California. Since Trump took office, about 50 more miles has already been completed or is under construction on the California border. There are plans for many more contracts to be let next year too. I'm now standing on the Mexican side where the 41 miles of bollard fence ends in the small town of Andrade. The small obelisk on top of the mound is a border monument that marks the border location. The fence becomes landing mat again here, about 2/3 of a mile away from the Colorado River, which is the border with Arizona. There's a border crossing here. The border crossing and landing mat belong to the Yuma CBP sector, and that's probably why the fence changes abruptly, because the bollard fence is in the El Centro sector. That's all for now. Thanks for viewing. My YouTube channel, which was in good standing at the time, was deleted without warning. It seems because these border videos were becoming too popular. So please share to help me reach more viewers in spite of the censorship. To find the video playlists of all my border videos, you can search for Patriot Fire, The Real Border Fence.